Hey, what's up? Jason here from Unity3D.College. Today I want to share something that I've been excited about for a very long time and really been looking forward to, and that's this new prefab workflow system. Now, you may see just on the screen here, nested prefabs is kind of the core of this system, or at least the thing that most people have been the most excited about. There's a whole new workflow. There's nesting support for variants, which I'll show in just a little while, and a prefab mode. But before we dive too deep into how this all works, I do want to just kind of preface it and say that don't expect that you're going to just take this beta version and run with it and start building your game using this system already. As it stands, it's relatively buggy. It crashes quite a bit on me, and it's just not quite ready. I'm sure it'll be there by the time it gets to public release. It's going to be an awesome new system, definitely worth checking out. But don't think that you need to just dive in and start going with this system right away. It's got a little bit more time to go. So let's just kind of get started and run through some of these different features and how you use them. So I've got an empty project here, and I think I'll just go with kind of a basic character and weapon system. So create a capsule, and this will be our player. So let's just make that a character. There we go. Let's go to 3D mode though and hit F to kind of zoom in. So this is going to be like a player. Imagine this is just a player prefab or a character prefab. And you may already notice that they look a little bit different here. The icons have actually changed for non-prefab objects. So if I take this player now, drop it down into the project view, you'll see it become a prefab, and notice that the icon is going to totally change. It's no longer just that text color change. It now goes kind of back to the single color blue cube instead of the multicolored one. So now this is a prefab, and you may have noticed in the inspector there's actually an open prefab button, and I can hit that, or I can just double click on it right here, or sorry, I guess click this arrow right here, and it does the same thing. It goes into this prefab editor mode. That was the last thing listed in there, and I think that this is kind of one of the most exciting features about this, outside of nesting, of course. And it's just this way that you can go in and edit a prefab without having to drag it into a scene, make your changes, and then drag it back out of the scene. The typical workflow would go something like that. It'd be like, hey, drag the player here, let's change its scale to 2, and then drag or hit apply and then drag it back or something, or delete it out of there. Now we don't have to do that. We can just find a prefab even down in the project view and just double clicking on it, just not on the name part, brings up the editor as well. You can also right click, and I believe there was an open, I could be wrong. Apparently it's not there, but there is in the in this view right here. So you can right click and hit open prefab asset. Actually, perhaps it was just because, nope, it wasn't. So yeah, only from the scene view apparently, or you can just double click in the project view. So we've got this player here, and it's a prefab, just like any normal prefab. So if I went in and let's actually make a little change here. Let's create a new material. So I'll create a material, and I'll call this like player, or let's just call it blue. Let's keep it nice and simple, and we will turn it blue. Just pick up blue color, and then say I wanted to edit this prefab. I could go about it kind of the normal way and just drop it on here, but then I wouldn't be able to apply it because there's no apply button. Instead, what I need to do is click on this overrides pop-up, and oh no, it pops up off the screen. So let's drag it over here, and you'll see right here there's an apply all button. This is actually just going to apply the changes on that mesh renderer, and I can even click on it to see the changes. So I've clicked on the mesh renderer here, and you see that the changes are right here, this dark bolded part, just like Unity always did with prefabs, where there's something different, it's dark and bolded. So I could do that and hit apply all. I'm going to hit revert all though, and we're just going to go back and do it through the prefab editor just to show how we do that. So double click on the player, and now I'm in this special little mini scene. It seems like it almost opens up another scene in memory without closing the other one. And then I can just only see this prefab, and I can edit the prefab. So here, let's just assign that blue material, and then I'll go back. So this little arrow right here just takes me back out, and you see that now my player is updated. He's blue. So let's create another prefab and nest it. So to do that, I think I'll start with just a cube, and we're just going to turn this into a weapon. So take a cube and drag it over here. Actually, let's turn it into a weapon prefab right away. So turn it into a weapon. And then we'll drop it into the project view, and then just double click on it and go straight into edit mode. Now again, I could edit this in the scene view, but I want to run through how to do this in the new workflow. So let's scale that down, make it shorter, and then let's add another child cube onto here. We'll just make this kind of like the handle of my really crappy little gun. There we go. Oops, wrong way. Let's scale that on the Y. There we go. I've got a nice, really bad looking gun. And I'm going to create a material for it as well. So just go here, create material, and we'll call this green. Just make a nice green colored gun. There we go. And we'll assign it to both the renderers. Let's drop it onto both of those. Now, as I go back into my scene, so just hit back. Remember, I'm in prefab edit mode. My changes are constantly applying. You see that now I have a weapon here, and it's in the right color, right place. And I want to make this now a child. So let's go through and do some of that prefab nesting. The cool part here is I can go in, drop this underneath the player, and then I can still edit the player prefab and notice that the weapon is not there as a child. Even though I have the weapon right here, it's not showing up as a child of this thing because it's not actually applied to the prefab. Now if I wanted to apply it there, I could go down to the override section, and if I drag this back over, really hate when the menus pop up off screen. See, I could apply all and assign this weapon prefab as a child. Now, normally when you do this, if you make a change to the weapon, you're going to end up not being able to reapply that back to the player without going into the player and changing that as well. So let's see how it works with the new system. If I go to my weapon now, and maybe I want to add, well, let's add a little point right here at the end where our projectiles are going to shoot out of. So to do that, I'd normally just go in, create a little sphere, and drag it out, scale that thing way down. It's a little bit distorted, but I just use this as kind of a visual indicator for where it's going to be. I'm going to put it right about there, and then turn off the collider and turn off the renderer and call it something like fire point. Yeah, I've got it facing out in the correct direction. And then eventually I'd assign this to a script and like, hey, this is where the muzzle flash or the ray cast might come from. So I've got that done, and I go back over here, and now if I look at my weapon, you see I have the fire point there, even though this is technically underneath the player prefab. Again, if we did this in another version of Unity, basically any version without this new beta workflow, that would not work. I wouldn't be able to get my weapon changes in there without going back through and rechanging this object. I'd have to essentially select this, and I couldn't really revert it because it would revert the player. I'd have to like pull it out, grab the newer version, and then drop it in, and still not have it be a kind of a linked working prefab. So hopefully this kind of shows how you can start to use these nested prefabs, and remember that you can just have a prefab, have a child of it, and then change that child without breaking everything else. So let's dive in a little bit deeper. Let's say I'm in the prefab editor mode, and I'm ready to make this weapon actually shoot. Let's add just a new weapon script. And we double click that, and oh, Visual Studio is going to start trying to open up. Let's see. Did it make it this time? So just to clarify, the last couple times I've tried to add a script and open it, it's been a pretty high crash rate. So most of the time it has just crashed trying to add a new component to these things, and it was usually when I got around to opening Visual Studio. So here I'd go something like serialized field, private transform fire point, and maybe have something in here that starts to fire. But I just want to show that these scripts should work, and we can still assign things if it doesn't crash. So here we go. We've got the weapon added. We'll let it compile. There we go. It's all done. Assign my fire point and go back. And again, if I select my weapon, you see that now that fire point is assigned. So this really will work for just a real game. Again, once it stops crashing. So hopefully very soon. All right, now let's take a look at variants. So if I right click on my weapon and go to create, you can see there's a prefab variant option. So just right click on or click on that, and I get a weapon variant, and I'm just going to leave it named as that. this will be like a purple gun that has 2 fire points. Maybe it's a shotgun. Actually, yeah, let's call it weapon shotgun. So my shotgun, if I open it up, right now it looks just like the normal weapon. But I want this to be a little bit different. In fact, I'm just going to add another weapon script to it. I'm going to select that fire point. And this is somewhat similar to how I would do a normal shotgun. It's a little bit different. But I'll grab that fire point, and I might even just rotate it a little bit. And then I'm going to duplicate it and put another one over here and rotate that slightly different. So there's kind of a little bit of a spread. And then I'll go to my shotgun and just assign fire point 1 as well. So now my shotgun has 2 fire points. Theoretically, if it was all hooked up, it would shoot off in multiple directions. And then I want to give it its own material. So here, let's just duplicate the green material and make it purple. Just call it purple. And pick the color. And then we'll just assign it. Purple's probably a bad choice. It looks like the missing material almost. So that's our shotgun. Our shotgun is now a purple gun with multiple fire points. Now, if I want to use that, I could, of course, just drop that right onto the player. And maybe even delete out the old one. Oh, did it not delete? Children of prefab instance cannot be deleted. Oh, okay. I need to go into prefab mode and do that. I didn't even realize that. So if we hit that, or just hit the little arrow here, or again, double click. Go into prefab mode, and then I'll just delete, oops, not the name, just delete the weapon and go back out. And now the weapon shows up with that little plus, which means it's not part of the prefab, so I can delete it. And now I've got the shotgun here, so let's take the shotgun, I'm going to move it over here. And in just a moment, I'll show why we're doing this. So here we'll go to overrides, and I'm just going to hit apply. Let's drag that back on screen. Hit apply all, so I want to get this player updated. And then we're going to go back to our weapon script. So we have this base weapon, right? And we've already created a variant with the shotgun. And say I add something to the weapon. Now normally this would probably be a piece of functionality, like a muzzle flash script. But to make it really visual, we'll just add in a little sight or something. Let's do that. So we'll right click. Maybe we'll do both just because I feel like it. So add a cube, grab it, switch to the scale tool. We'll scale it way down, way down, way down. And we'll just put this kind of right on the front right here so we can aim. And then we'll give it its own material. In fact, I'll just put the blue material on there for now. So what's going to happen? What's our shotgun going to look like? Is it going to have this? Oh, before we look, let's add a script too. Let's go to the weapon. Let's add a muzzle flash script. We'll create this new script and add it. And I'm not going to really add any functionality to it. I just want to get that script onto there. But now I'm going to go back to my scene. Let's take a look. Notice anything with the shotgun? We now have the little sight there. And we have all of the things. Oh, wait. What's missing here? Something is missing. Didn't I add a muzzle flash? Where did my muzzle flash go? Well, let's take a look. Not there. Take a look at the weapon. Oh. Apparently my muzzle flash script didn't actually add. Again, relatively buggy build. Just be careful. Don't try to use this for production quite yet. Hopefully it's very, very near ready though. So there we go. Now I'll go back and now I've got my muzzle flash script. So once it added on again. Oh, and interesting. You can't move these around either. So again, just more things that I'm sure they're working on and going through. But again, I wanted to just show the system because I've been really excited about it for a very long time. I've tried a lot of the different prefab systems, the nested prefab plugins that are available. And usually they worked pretty well at first and then kind of fell apart as the project got bigger and bigger. They would just get slower and take longer and confuse people. Doing this full movement though, this full integrated solution, I think is going to be awesome once it's ready. And I'm really excited for the time when I can start using this in all of my projects. So I highly recommend that you go check it out. Just play with it a little bit. Like I said, don't really try to use it in a real project, but maybe if you have some really simple little thing that you're going to be building for an hour or two, you just want to play, go for that instead. and have fun with it. And then if you have any special tips or things that I might have missed going through this, like I said, I've only played with it a little bit just because I ran into so many issues. So if you have something cool that I didn't show yet, please drop a comment below so I can check it out and everybody else watching afterwards can as well. And then once this system is kind of finalized and solid, I'd expect to see quite a few more videos on this because I'm, again, really excited about this whole thing. Alright, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, hit the buttons and all that stuff. Thanks again.